All right, so it's pretty often that I forget to start that, but so I got it pretty early this time. So at this point, we will have already been logged into our tournament, but I'm just going to come in here to manage tournaments. You guys all know how to do this by now, and I'm going to search for my tournament. And we are working with Open Tournaments 102 tonight, and I'll log in as an administrator. And we get logged in. So again, obviously no difference there. If you take a look at the to-do list on this tournament, again, the difference tonight in 102 versus what we covered in 101, the biggest difference is that we're going to be adding weight classes. And then wrestlers will weigh in, and they'll be assigned to a weight class depending on what they weighed. In our last class, we did the Madison block bracketing, used the grouping wizard, which is really common in open tournaments for kids tournaments. But again, this is just going to be a little bit different. So there's a few differences in our to-do list. One thing that we're not going to see in here on this tournament is we're not going to be adding mats. And if you're running electronically, you would. But the truth is, if you're just using a call to mat system, our system doesn't really need to know what mat you're sending those to when you're running paper bout sheets like we're going to do in this course tonight. Obviously, another difference here is going to be that we're going to be adding weight classes to our divisions, where in the grouping wizard we didn't have to do that. The grouping, or the Madison block bracketing, the grouping wizard actually created those for us. So we're going to be adding weight classes to our divisions. And then when we get down to building brackets, that is obviously a different process altogether. So a lot of things remain the same. If you're running an open tournament, regardless of whether it's using weight classes or if you're using the grouping wizard and block bracketing, you want to make sure you're still planning. You want to make sure that you kind of have a good plan as to computers you're going to use and printers and things like that. By the time we are here, again, we're going to skip a lot of these steps, but you may have imported. So you probably came in here and did some importing if you were, if you ran the tournament before, if you wanted, maybe there's a tournament out there from another tournament you were at. And you'll also will have gone through your settings page. And again, these are all covered in the other course. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them here, but you want to make sure that you have all these items taken care of. And then also in the deadlines, and I do want to touch on deadlines again. So if I go into deadlines, and you'll note, just as I've done in the other courses, kind of working down through this to-do list, but not necessarily referring to the to-do list every time. But deadlines in open tournaments are sometimes used, maybe a little more common when you get to like predefined tournaments, but in open tournaments, basically they're used to determine when you're going to release wrestlers, brackets, and other information to the public. And that would be the release to the public deadline. This lockout statisticians, we covered this briefly in the other class, but basically a statistician is a team representative that's chosen from each team. Usually it's a coach, but that person's responsible for entering the team's lineup. We're not going to use that system tonight, but just know that it's out there. The predefined tournament or the varsity tournaments course covers that. But basically you can set up a statistician for each team and send out an email. It's not as common in open tournaments. You see that a lot when you have like specific teams coming to your tournament. So it's possible if you're running a JV tournament that you might do that though. So if you have questions on that, be sure to let us know. And our next step is going to be to select our bracket types. So same setup, or same procedures. Go to setup, bracket types, and then I'm going to pick one bracket, and I'm going to kind of just start with a 16-man, wrestle back to second, and I'm going to place it to 6. So I'm going to click here. And this is kind of the bracket that I'm shooting for in my tournament. And we can look at it by viewing the sample, of course. You can click there and open it up. And this kind of shows you what the bracket's going to look like. You can take a look at all those. That's my goal, but we know that maybe there's going to be some smaller brackets. So I'm also going to pick a similar bracket, but in an 8-man. So I'm going to go to the 8-man, wrestle back to second, and also placing 6, because I want it to be consistent as I can. But I also want to make sure that if I have smaller brackets, that I can accommodate those. And then finally, if there's a real small bracket, I'm going to use a 4-man round robin. So when we build the brackets, the system's actually going to pick the correct bracket type, and of course we'll get to that in just a minute. So that's going to be the same as in other formats, but I also am going to add a division. So I come into setup, I go to groups and divisions, And I'm going to add my group, and of course, and you guys have done this before, but I might add a 5th and 6th grade division. Style, I'm going to go folk style. I could put my pre-reg entry fee. I'm not really worried about that here tonight, but I'm going to say that it's a 3-minute match, and I can go ahead and add it. I'm not going to add any more. We're going to actually import those in just a little bit, but the one difference here is we're going to add weight classes. So after I add all of my groups, maybe I have a 3rd and a 4th and a K2, whatever the case might be, maybe a 7th and 8th. What I need to do is add weight classes to each of these groups. So I'm going to click on one of the groups, which is my 5th and 6th grade, and you'll notice that it says right here that I have no weight classes added. I need to do that manually. I'm going to show you how to do that, and we're actually going to import. And for those of you that have run the tournaments before, or if you have other tournaments, or maybe you're using standard weights for an organization, maybe it's USA, AAU, New Way, any of the groups that are out there, you can always import those from one of those tournaments. But to show you how to do this, I'm just going to click Add Weight Class. My weight class, I'm going to add, let's say it's 60. I'm going to hit Tab, and it's going to put the max weight at the same as the weight class. And what you could do here is, let's say that your wrestlers were maybe going to be allowed to weigh 61. Maybe there's a weight allowance here. You could change that to 61. I'm actually not going to do that just for the sake of this. But in that case, if a wrestler weighed in at 61, he would still be eligible. He or she would still be eligible for this weight class. If I have it at 60, then anybody over 60 will not be eligible, and I would need to manually place those there. Our system won't do that unless you force it. So again, that max weight might come in handy. Bracket type, we're not going to select that yet, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. But I hit 60. There's my weight class there. And then, of course, I would just go on, add another weight class, 65. Tab key is kind of a nice one here. It's going to add my max weight as the same as the weight class, and I go ahead and add that. And I would just go kind of on down the line. So that's how you basically add your groups and divisions. And you need to do that when you're setting up predefined weight classes in a tournament such as this. So at this point, I am going to import the weights just to save us some time tonight. I'm going to import the groups and divisions, and actually the teams too, for the sake of our demo here tonight. So I'm going to come into the setup, go to import settings, and I'm going to go select or get the tournament that I want to import from. And I'm actually going to come from this tournament, the West B tournament. There's several of them here, but I'm going to use this one right here, and you'll see that it's there. I just want to make sure I have the right one. Yep, that's the one. And then what I'm going to import, I'm going to import groups and divisions, groups there. I'm going to import the weight classes, and I'm also going to import the teams. And that's just going to help us when we're building our brackets to show you that. One point here is that if you're going to import weight classes, those are tied to groups, so you would need to bring them both. You can't just bring weight classes without a group. So if you do want weight classes, just know you're going to have to import both of these. You could bring groups without weight classes though, but in order to get weight classes, you need to bring the groups. So I would do that. I would click this down here saying that I understand what I'm doing, and I'm going to overwrite what was there, if it was already there, and I type import. And now when I come back and I go to my groups and divisions, actually I'll show you teams probably just to show you. Now I have teams that when I add wrestlers, they'll get added to teams. So that's just kind of a handy way to do it. You probably, I shouldn't say that. I would guess that you might not import teams when you do that, but there might be scenarios that you would. And you'll see that now I have my groups that got brought in. This 5th and 6th grade, the one that I already added, I'm actually just going to delete that out. I added that just as an example, but I don't really want it. So what I really wanted was the same groups and weight classes. So if I click on any of these groups, now you see that all those weight classes are added. So obviously a big time saver. Again, we encourage you to import. When you're doing your first few tournaments, as I always say, really good idea to go through and just add things at least to make sure you kind of know why they're ending up where they're ending up. So you want to make sure now as we go through, if you're doing team scoring, you're going to want to go ahead and set that up. You go through and edit all these. And then you also want to make sure that you check your rounds page in the setup. And I go to rounds page. And again, we covered all of this in our other course. But there's some combining maybe that you would do here if you had, as we do, you have multiple bracket types in a tournament. We do have another course that's going to focus specifically on that because that's kind of a more, I guess, advanced technique or skill maybe that you might say. But for our sake, I'm just going to let it run. Most people are going to be able to use the defaults that our system puts in, but there are times where if you're running multiple charts that you might want to combine some of these. And basically you would check those off, and then I would come to combine selected rounds. But again, for our course tonight, we're just going to kind of leave them as is. And then of course I want to go in and set up number schemes. And I'm going to spend a minute or two on this again too. After a couple of the other courses, we did have some questions on number schemes, and it is kind of a confusing topic sometimes. But again, one way to think of it is that it's a system to add bout numbers to your matches. If you skip this step, then you're going to get the match ID numbers, and those aren't going to be unique. They're only going to be unique to a bracket type. So it's going to start with 1 and continue 2, 3, 4. And so if you didn't apply a number scheme, means you could have, 50 bout number 1s. And sometimes it's not really what you're looking to do. But a number scheme can be created, and then we're going to add it later. And so you could potentially have a unique bout number for every bout in your tournament. And you can use that to accommodate a lot of situations. It could be, different age groups. It could be different mats and things like that. But we recommend it. It's not required, but we definitely recommend that you add a number scheme. And we think that it helps, parents and fans and certainly you running a tournament to add the number schemes. So I came here and set up to number schemes. If I'm in this worker wizard, I can click the red link here. I can add quickly a number scheme that's called all. If you remember, I'll go back here real quick. If you remember when we had our mats in here, when we were assigning bouts to mats, and in that case we took about a chart, it was going to stay at a mat for the entire day, like you a lot of times do with kids tournaments and other tournaments for that matter. And we just hit this add mat schemes, and it added a scheme for each one. We're not going to do that tonight because we don't have mats in here, but I'm going to use this add scheme. I'm going to type all, and I can highlight all of these. I'm going to do all groups, all mats, all groups, and all rounds. If I didn't highlight those, they will default to all. And then I could just click add. And what this is going to do is just going to add one scheme. It's going to start with the first bout that gets created in the tournament. It's going to number at number 1 because I started at number 1. And it's just going to continue 1, 2, 3, 4 right on through. So again, you're going to have unique bout numbers, but they're going to be starting with 1 and running right on through. And that may be the way that you want to do it. What a lot of people like to do is number their divisions. And remember that I have, if I go to my groups and divisions, I have several groups and divisions in here. And maybe I want the 04s, 05s to start with 1001, and maybe these to start with 2001. So I'm actually going to show you how you do that. So I come back to in the setup menu, and I go to number schemes. And if I add this scheme, and now I'm going to call this one just 04, 05. And you can name it whatever you want. You're the only one that's going to see it, but obviously you want it to be to make sense. I'm going to do all mats, but in this case, I'm just going to select the group that I want. I'm going to pick all rounds, and then I'm going to change the starting number to 1001. You really want to start, you wouldn't want to start with 1000. If you think of it, you wouldn't start your tournament with bout number 0. Just like we would probably say don't start it with 1000. You could, but starting with 1 makes a lot of sense, and that way the kid knows. And the parents know he's like the first match, or she's the first match. So, and I just go ahead and add it. And then I would just go and add another scheme. And this one I could add for, I think it was 02, 03 would be my next group. Yep, sure enough, there it is. I'd go all mats. I'd select just that age group. If I wanted others in there, I could use the control key and highlight those. But I'd go all around, and in this case, actually I'm going to show you how you can change this. So if I click add here, and I look, and I have my 02, 03, it's got the right group, but it's not starting with the number that I want it to. I could just click on it from this page as well, change it to 2001, and then now it kind of looks the way I want it. And of course, I would go through all my other age groups there and add all those number schemes. But again, we've covered that in another course, but it is a really important step, and it's one that often gets missed and quite honestly gets kind of messed up sometimes. So it's good for us to kind of cover that. So next thing I would do is copy this over to the testing site, and it's actually exactly what I'm going to do now. I go to Setup, Import Settings, and then of course at the very bottom of this page, there's this link to click here. And again, as you know, what this is doing, it's creating a copy of whatever I currently have on the live site, and it's going to put it over on our testing site for us to practice. So again, good time to do it. It's where we want you practicing. So if you have tournaments out there that you've ordered, copy them over to testing when you're ready. You know, mess around with them there, play around, run your mock tournaments, and you should be in good shape. So that takes a few seconds to copy that over there, and then I'm just going to come in here and search for it again. And there's our Open Tournaments 102, I'm an administrator, and I can log in just like I do on the live site. So now I'm ready to practice here, and this is an easy kind of thing to do, especially now that we have weight classes and everything in here. I'm going to add a bunch of random wrestlers, and if I go in my left menu, you'll see on the testing site that I have this operations function. So I go to operations, and I'm going to add these random wrestlers here, and I get this screen. Again, we're going to do this a little bit differently than we did when we were doing block bracketing. I'm going to use 700 wrestlers, and you can use whatever number you want. It'd be a really good idea to kind of pick a number that would be similar to what you're expecting. So I'm just going to say I have a large tournament. I'm going to have 700 wrestlers. I'm going to add those to my existing weight classes because I have those in there. I am going to add them to the existing teams, and if you remember, I imported those, and it's actually just going to be kind of easier to see where wrestlers fall in a bracket when we can see their teams, and you'll be able to see that teams are being separated by our system. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the max weight of the weight class. So actual weights in here aren't going to be real important, but that's a good way to do it. So that selection is a good one to have. I don't need a weight range because we're just placing them into these weight classes that I already have. And then I want to spread those out over all of my groups. I could just select one or two of these, but I'm going to say 700. I want about 100 in each. And then I go ahead and add the random wrestlers. And again, it takes a couple minutes, just a moment. And then now when I go into groups and divisions, now you'll see that I have roughly 100 in each. It took those 700 and kind of spread them out over there. If I look in my wrestler list, if I go here in registration actually to my wrestler list, you'll see they're all there. The teams are here, which is going to be really handy for us to kind of simulate what it's going to look like. And then if you'll notice, like for instance, in the 67-pound weight class, it used the actual weight of 67. So the one thing that didn't get added here is separation criteria, and for our sake here tonight, that's no big deal. So if I look at a wrestler here, you're going to see that there's not a separation criteria here, but that's good. That's going to be okay. So as we get close to the tournament, of course, you can be practicing on the testing site. You know, the night before, as we always say, you're going to want to make sure you got your computers, you test everything. You probably go in and print your weigh-in cards, and I can show you this now that we have wrestlers in here. But I would go to registration and printing and weigh-in cards. So I come here to this, and I can sort these a lot of different ways. And the weigh-in cards are, of course, going to be what you're going to take to wrestlers are going to take to the weigh-ins. I can sort them by group. You know, I can change things there. You guys all know this. But when I print those cards, now you know because I have all these wrestlers in here, it's going to put all these wrestlers in. And there's this place for actual weight. They can take them to the scales. They'll write those on the scale. And then we'll come back and we'll get their weights in the tournament and be ready to bracket in no time. Also, if you needed blank ones, of course, that's what the weigh-in card template would be. So we'd perform the registration at this point, right, on the day of our tournament. Again, we kind of covered that, but in the on-site registration, those weigh-in cards are going to be filled out. They're going to bring those back, and in the registration, in the on-site registration, I'd enter the wrestler in here, add those in. Of course, you want to double check, just like we always tell you. Go back to double check to make sure that all the data is correct. The one thing you want to do always, and I want to spend just a second on this, is delete your no-shows. So there's always going to be wrestlers maybe that register that don't show up or pull out or whatever the case might be. But if I go to my wrestler list and I'm looking here, and let's say, for instance, I'm just going to take this wrestler right here, and I'm going to take his actual weight out. So if I remove that actual weight and I save him, he happens to be at the top, but you'll notice that there is no weight there. If I click to toggle these columns, you'll see that now the heaviest wrestlers are at the top, and it sorts it in a descending fashion. If I click weight again, it's going to bring the lowest to the top, which of course there's no weight here, so it's going to bring them to the top. And I can delete them either by clicking here and do delete selected participant, but that might not be real effective because maybe I have, a dozen or so and I don't want to click them all there. All I need to do is go to delete no-shows, and I can select whatever divisions I want. In my case, I'm going to delete all of the no-shows. And what this is going to do, if I click remove, it's going to tell that it's going to delete all the wrestlers that did not weigh in. So anybody without an actual weight, it's going to delete them. So I'm going to type it, delete no-shows. And then now you'll notice that our wrestler is gone. If I toggle this column, everybody in here has an actual weight. So that's really important to make sure that you're not bracketing somebody who's not actually there, because then you get big problems trying to change brackets after the brackets are built. It's really not that hard of a thing to do, but certainly in the middle of your tournament, the less of that you have to do, the better. So the next thing we want to do is take a look. We're going to come into bracketing and go to groups and divisions, and I want to scan my weight classes. So I'm just going to take a look, make sure everything looks okay. So I come in here, I go to 04, 05, and you'll see that I have, and my weights, I should have added a few more wrestlers, I guess. But you notice that, let's say, for instance, here's a 5 and a 3, and I really want this to be an 8-man bracket. Typically, it'd be more like a 2 and a 1 that you put together, but in this case, let's just say that we want to combine the 45s and the 48s. Maybe you'd do that, maybe you wouldn't, but certainly it's a really easy thing to do. I just select the two that I want to combine, and I click this combine selected, and I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to rename it 45 and 48. And the reason you could name it whatever you want. We think it's a good idea to name it 45 and 48 because there's going to be a parent or a wrestler who is supposed to be in the 45-pound weight class, and if you name it something like combined or something like that, he might not know where to look. He or she might not know where to look. So adding the actual weight classes, the original weight class names in there is typically a pretty good idea. So if I come here now, you'll see there's 8 of them there. And if I click on it, there's all of our 8 wrestlers. So that's combining a weight class, pretty easy to do. And really you just want to scan those weights and make sure you have your groups kind of grouped up the way that you want to. And so now I'm ready to build my brackets. If I come into bracketing, the first thing I want to do is I want to assign wrestlers to weights. And basically what that means is if I had a wrestler, if I come back to my wrestler list, could have done it from there too. See that everybody here has a weight class, and actually in ours, if I click this and toggle it, you'll see that that's the case. But if there wasn't a weight class for a wrestler, we want to make sure we put them in the weight class. So I'm going to take our wrestler that's at the top of the alphabetical list, and I'm just going to click on Harley Abrook here, and I'm going to remove his weight class and save him. And that's okay. And now you'll notice that Harley here does not have a weight class. So the first step in the bracketing process here when we're building like this is I'm going to assign wrestlers to weights. So I'm going to assign a weight class to a wrestler. I'm going to pick all of my groups to select them there. I click assign weight classes, and it's going to show me here that there's one wrestler that wasn't assigned to a weight class. So I click OK. I come back here now. I'm going to look for Harley. You'll notice now that Harley's here, and our system put him in the right weight class based on his weight. So if there were a case where you just mistakenly didn't put a wrestler in a weight class, as long as we have that actual weight, the system will put him in. This is kind of where that max weight comes in, kind of comes into play there. So that's the first step. Next step you want to do is you want to assign brackets to weight classes. Okay, so I come into bracketing. And you'll notice that we're in this bracketing menu that you can just use these red links up here. I keep coming out and coming back in just to show you how to get there. But at the bottom of this page, you'll notice that there's this list. And this is kind of your map as to how our system is going to put wrestlers, or how our system is going to pick a bracket for a weight class. And so it just basically says if there's 16 wrestlers, it's going to go in that 16-man bracket. If we get down here, once we get under 9, it's going to go to the 8-man. And once we get to 4, it's going to go to the 4-man. So it probably makes sense. You're probably not going to make any changes here, but if you needed to, you can just come in and click one. So let's say for whatever reason I want to put the 4, if there's a weight with 4 wrestlers, I want to put that on an 8-man bracket. It doesn't make any sense, but I can show you that we can do it if we need to. I just click on the one I want to remove, and you'll see that it gets removed from the list. Now this goes 1, 2, 3, 5. So I want to say that I have groups with 4, and I'm going to put groups with 4 on the 8-man bracket. And if I add it, you'll see that it gets added to the bottom of this list, and now we have it. One thing to keep in mind too is if you maybe click something accidentally here, you'll notice that this goes 4, 1, 2, 3. If I just come back and click the assign brackets to weight classes link, you'll notice that it gets reset to our default. So I wouldn't suggest messing around here unless you had a real reason to, but if you do have a reason to, that's where you would do it. And then all I need to do from here is select all the groups again, and I could do these one at a time. Let's say that half of these are running on Friday and half are running Saturday or something. I can build them differently. That's no problem at all. And I just assign bracket types. And this says, okay, this is interesting. It's a really good time to show this. It says 114 weight classes were assigned a bracket type. 1 hasn't been assigned a bracket type. That means that doesn't have any wrestlers. So if we went and looked, and I won't spend the time doing it, but if I came over here, and maybe we'll get lucky, if I come over to the groups and divisions, and I just pick 98, 99, I have no idea if this is the one, and it's not. There would be one in here that doesn't have a bracket type, and it would be one that had 0 here. So, but the system's gonna take the number of wrestlers and assign the appropriate bracket type. And then now I'm just going to build my brackets. So I come back into bracketing, come to build and delete brackets, or I can just click the link there. Same thing. I'm actually just going to build the 04s, 05s, and I'll show you a couple different ways to do this. By default, our system's going to draw all the seeds, meaning it's just going to randomly assign, place wrestlers on brackets, kind of no particular order to it, completely random. And so really quickly I can build all my brackets, click build brackets, and I'm going to type draw because I'm drawing all of them, means I'm drawing them in, I'm not seeding them. And I just built 17 brackets. And so if I go to my groups and divisions and come to 04, 05, you'll see now that these brackets got built. And if I click on any of these, I can come to the bracket, open the bracket, and I can view any of them. So I could make changes from here if I needed to. But that's really how easy it is to build brackets. Now, there's a few options in building brackets too, and I'm going to kind of skim over them tonight because these are less likely for you to need to know how to do. But we do have a whole other course that's just dedicated to seeding and building brackets using some of these different seeding options. But if I go back to bracketing, if I go back to the bracketing menu and click on seeding, you'll notice that down here there's several different ways that we can seed and separate wrestlers. So I can, if I click this one, and I could do this on any of these divisions, but this one right here is going to seed wrestlers using the Trackwrestling rank values. So on every profile there's a rank. It's not the percentage, but it's that decimal, and I can come here and use the Trackwrestling rank to seed the wrestlers. So anybody with a profile, I can seed them that way. I could also seed the wrestlers based on the separation criteria. Remember, I noted that there were no separation criteria added in this tournament. But if wrestlers if they were registering online or something, they were picking that, I could actually seed based on the separation criteria values that they entered. I could seed using the points entered in the extra field. And in that case, during the registration, I would have an extra field added. Maybe it's a points, maybe you have a point system. You get 100 for being, a state qualifier. Maybe you get, 5 points for every win during the season. Whatever the case might be, they could enter, or the coach could enter their points, and the system will seed them based on those points. This link will just delete any of the seeds that are currently assigned to the wrestlers. And then finally, you can assign a separation criteria based on the Trackwrestling rank values. And that's probably more used in the Madison block bracketing and probably not appropriate here. But again, I'm going to go in depth into these in a course in a few weeks here. If anybody interested in that. Again, most of the time you're going to come to build delete brackets and you're going to draw those seeds. As a side note, if you wanted to just hand seed, if I go into groups and divisions and I click any of my groups, I can click on any of these weights and I could hand seed these using these drop downs over here. So I would select a seed for some of these wrestlers, and then I could seed through 5, I could seed through 3, and then build that bracket. Or I could even save all those seeds here. Again, not as common having to do that, but sometimes you might want to, and that's a good way to do it. So again, lots of ways to seed in our system here. So I want to make sure that the brackets got built. So if I go to my group, back to my groups and divisions, and you probably noticed this, but remember the 04s, 05s, that's the only brackets that I built. It's the only group that I built. So in the 04, 05, you'll notice this column that the bracket was built. If there was yellow here, that would mean, of course, that it didn't get built. So you just want to make sure that all the brackets are built before you go ahead. And then I would go ahead and apply my number schemes. You know, the one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to build one more group just to show you number schemes. So if I go to build brackets, and I come here, and I'm just going to draw them again. So I'm going to build one more. I'm going to build one more group full of brackets. So I just built 22 more. So we're going to talk about applying the number schemes. That's over and operating now if I go to number schemes. The one thing you'll notice if I go to bout schedule, that now all of my bouts are created, but they all have this question mark. Again, that means that I haven't applied my number schemes yet. So I'm just going to come here, and I'm going to apply the 04, 05. So these two that we created, I'm going to start one group with 1001, the next group with 2001. I'm going to apply the selected schemes. I'm going to leave the frozen status as it is right now. I could freeze any bout numbers that I had already applied, which I haven't done because I haven't done any of that yet. Or I could unfreeze, and that would be the case if I rebuilt a bunch of brackets and wanted to renumber everything, I would unfreeze them. If I only changed a couple, I might freeze the existing bout numbers. But in our case, we can leave it. I go continue, and I'm going to apply. And as you know, if I go back to the bout schedule, now you'll note that I have all these bout numbers on here. If I look at 04, 05, I should have the 1000s, which I do. If I go to 02, 03, now I have the 2000s, and that's exactly what I wanted. So that's good. You'll also notice that the yellow down here, of course, those are bouts we're waiting for. Round one, we know the participants in those, but when we get to the quarters and semis, you know, we're still waiting for results to see how those brackets update. Of course, the next thing I would do is print my brackets out, and you know how to do that. And then I would also go ahead and print selected bout sheets. In this case, I would probably do, you know, round one, find those and print them out. So print your bout sheets and send them out to the mats, and you know you're ready to go. I will point out here just one other side note, because this comes up at times too. So let's say that I selected I don't know, maybe all groups, and I'm just doing round ones of these. And so now I'm ready to print my first round bout sheets. If I go to print brackets, nope, I'm sorry, print bout sheets, click the wrong one. You'll notice that down here there's an advanced settings. If I go to advanced settings and click on there, sometimes people will ask how they print a blank bout sheet. And actually, in this case, I probably wouldn't have selected all these. I probably would have just went to the print documents. But the way to print a blank bout sheet is to come here to the second HTML entry. And you don't need to know a lot about this other than this is all the stuff that shows up. This is the image behind there. These are the lines on the bracket. And this is all the text and those sorts of things in there. If I hide this entry and then I view this sample, you'll notice that the names and everything aren't here. So sometimes you guys ask and want to know how you print a blank bout sheet. You come to the advanced settings, and then the second HTML entry you select hide. So I'm going to flip that back just because that is how we typically would do that. So if I want to print my bout sheets, I would do it there. So I'd go ahead and enter my bout results now, of course. And I would do that from bout entry here. And I go ahead and I enter, let's say 2003 comes in. Select my winner, and again, you guys know how to do this, so I'll just kind of whip right through it. Maybe he got a forfeit, and I save that. And let's say then 2004 comes in, and I come up with that one, and maybe it was this guy, and he was, and it was a tech fall, let's say it was like 16-1. And I go ahead and save that. you'll notice that I get this, you get this message saying that all of the bouts in that weight class are done for the round, and now I know that I can go ahead and print the next round of bout sheets there too. So next thing I want to do is, actually here, let me show you this. Back to the bout schedule. You'll notice that now that bracket is done, and so that turns green. So I can go ahead, I can open these brackets. I can make changes from here if I need to. Again, we covered that in the other course, but that's an easy way to do it. I can just click on any of these bouts. I could make changes to the winner. I could, go ahead and change who is actually in the match. So it's an easy way to do that. And then, obviously what I would do from here is just go ahead and continue entering bouts. As a reminder, if I want to enter a bunch of results, just kind of have the computer or our system do it. In the left menu, if I come over here to Operations, I can do Enter Bouts. And let's say I could use a match ID number, but because I have bout numbers, I'm just going to add bouts to my oldest group. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do 2001, 2001 because that's what I started, through, let's say 2050. So I'm going to enter like 50 bouts. And then I enter those. Just takes a couple of seconds. And then now if I look at my bout schedule, you'll see that I have a bunch of these entered. And if I filter this for just the 04s, was it 02, 03? Yeah, 02, 03. So now you see that I have all of those entered in there. So very, very quick way to kind of simulate your tournament. So that's kind of how you run your tournament. The other item that comes up, and something that's that comes up on occasion, is prelims. And so let's say that you have, let's say in my case that I didn't have a 16-man bracket. Let's say I didn't want to use that 16-man bracket. Instead, if I had like 9 or 10 wrestlers, I'd want to put them on an 8-man and then add a prelim. It's not actually what I have here, but we can show you. I'll show you how to do that here tonight. So if I come into the Setup menu and I go to Prelims. So this is a really good point. I don't see prelims over here, so I need to go into Settings. And when I go down here to use prelims, you'll see that it's set to no. And if I flip that to yes, and that page reloads, and I come back here, now I see prelims. So again, that's a nice point to make if you're not seeing something in a menu. First thing to do is try the settings page. But I'm going to come into here and I'm going to click on my prelim assignments. And so basically what a prelim is going to add a prelim anytime that that a chart needs it. And then the default is that the prelims are going to be randomly assigned. So anytime there's a prelim, it's just going to get randomly assigned in a bracket. But I can specify where I want to put them by using this add prelim assignment. I'm going to select the bracket type, and let's just say I can't add them to round robin, so I'm going to say I'm going to add them to this 8-man bracket. And what I really want to do is the number of prelims that I'll need to add would actually be the number of extra wrestlers that I could have on that bracket type. So all I'm going to really do is click View Sample Bracket. So in this case, this is an 8-man. The most prelims I could really have here would be 4. So I could have one that enters here, one that enters here, one that enters here, and one that enters here. And all our prelims are double elimination. So I'm going to keep that sample open, and I'm going to come and click on Add Prelim Assignment. So what I want to say here in this case is, if I come back to my bracket, what I want to say is, in my case, in this 8-man bracket, I want the 8 and the 9 seeds, let's say there's 9 wrestlers, I want the 8 and the 9 seeds to wrestle in a prelim out here somewhere, and the winner is going to have to wrestle the 1 seed. So they're 8 and 9 are going to wrestle, and then they're going to kind of fight for this spot to take on the 1 seed, okay? And then down here then, they're going to wrestle, and then there'll be a loser. The loser of this prelim is going to have a second chance, a double elimination, and if he were to win that one, then the winner of that one is going to come down here on the bottom half of the bracket. So you can kind of specify that however you want. So what I want to do is I want the winner is going to go to the bottom of bout 1, because this is bout 1, and we're going to have him come to the bottom of bout 1. And now on the consolation side, I want the winner, or the, I'm sorry, yeah, I want the loser to wrestle for, think about where we were putting him. He's going to wrestle for the bottom of 8. So you can do that however you want, and then I would just add that. So, and this will kind of tell you how those get added in there. And I could add another prelim. If I had 2 or 3 prelims here, I could move them up and down and save the order, and that's kind of how that works. The other thing you'll notice here is prelim scoring. I can select these prelims to score, yes or no, and I could also say how many advancement points they're getting. So it's probably typical for wrestlers only to get pin points or activity points for pins and tech falls and things like that. But if you wanted to assign advancement points, you certainly could do that too. And then the next thing you need to do in prelims is to schedule them into your rounds page. And this is something that we're happy to do for you because you need to add 2 rounds in here. We need to add the first round of prelims, and we're going to call that prelim round 1. And I'm going to click add there, and I'm going to get this page. And let's say that in our case we're only using this 8-man, and I'm going to switch that to prelim match IDs. And in the 8-man, remember we said there could only be 4 of those prelims, so I'm going to go 1 to 4. If I were doing prelims on the 16-man, I would switch that to prelim match IDs, and that would be 1 through 8. So again, the max number of prelims I could have on a 16-man would be 8, so we're going to go 1 through 8 there. The max number I could have on an 8-man would be 1 through 4, and I would save that round. And that was for round 1. Of course, these are double elimination, so I would also add prelim round 2. And again, this is going to be for those wrestlers kind of fighting to get back onto the bracket. And then I would also switch this to prelim match IDs. And this is going to be similar, only they're going to start with 51. And again, this is usually why we just kind of do these for you guys. It's a little bit complicated, but kind of simple, I guess, if you really think about it. I'm going to go 51 to 58 because, again, there's 8 possible there. I'll switch this prelims, and this is going to be 51 through 54. And I'll save that round detail too. Now what I want to do is, if you look at this rounds page, you'll notice they get added way at the bottom. Of course, I don't want my prelims running then. I'm going to click move, and I'm going to move my prelim round 1 to the very beginning of my tournament, which is how I want that. And then the next one would come in here, well, just before the quarters, I guess. And so I'm going to switch that, click move, and I'm going to put that at round 5. And so when I come back up here, now you'll see I get the prelims. I run all 3 first rounds of my 3 bracket types if I'm using them all, and then I come back with my second round of prelims. I just come here and save the round order, and then those prelims would get scheduled if they were necessary. Prelims, sometimes confusing for people. I've moved kind of quickly through that, but certainly it's something we do have videos on. And if you are having trouble with that, again, not real common, but sometimes if you need to use them, if you're having trouble with them, we're happy to help you out. So that kind of covers our Open Tournaments 102. There are probably questions, and I'm happy to stay on and answer those. I do want to thank you guys again for joining us. As I always say, we appreciate you guys coming here and taking the time on your weeknight to try and learn and to learn how to use our system a little better. The video for this will be available on our homepage tomorrow. I should have that up sometime, kind of earlier, mid-morning. And keep checking the homepage. We do have scheduling to do. We have more courses that we've created that we're going to be adding to that list here shortly. And again, if you have questions, I'm going to open the mics back up. Or if you have to get going, that's just fine. You can kind of sign out whenever you need to, and feel free to let us know through our ticket system if you do have questions. So. Okay, so the mics are back open, as you guys can all probably hear, but I am definitely here to answer questions that any of you might have.
Thanks, Shane. This was great.
Good. All right. If you have questions, I'm happy to hang out for a while. So.
Yeah,
but if
Shane,
you don't think, sure, go ahead.
For you, I'm just curious, out of this You know, coming up is going to be like an open tournament. There's no scoring. There's no nothing. I have an idea if this is going to work or not, but it's kind of like a red and blue. So instead, they're getting and we are going to try to do this on the floor without, with no problems. But I wanted to know, is it a possibility, and this is why I'm asking, what kind of a bracket to be using? The goal is to the littler kids together. So we're doing this on track. I want to try to match the possibility.
So I was it was cutting out, in and out a little bit. When people are hanging up there, I apologize. It kind of cuts out for a second.
My goal was to try to see if these bracketings, what's a good bracket to try to, because I noticed the prelim, you're trying to have it doing it with no score. Is it a possibility to do it without any of the scoring, and then trying to get the kids? Maybe I have kids for 10 men, or let's make it easier, 6, so 12. So I put 1, 6 on another. Is there a possibility, like if somebody had a loss or has a bye, I can put them together with another one on another bracket, just so that they can wrestle still?
So I think the question is, and this sounds kind of specific, but I think your question is, can you have a wrestler like on another bracket, like on more than one bracket? Like if they got beat out, you'd put them on another one. So the only way to do that, actually, the only way for a wrestler to be on more than one bracket in track wrestling is if you have them in as a participant twice. So in your situation, you would need to add those wrestlers again as a participant a second time. Because once you move them to another bracket, they're just going to get removed from the bracket they were on. All those results are gone. So there's not a great way to handle that, but the way to handle that would be to duplicate the wrestler. So if you notice when I click on a wrestler, there's this duplicate participant button.
Oh,
okay. So that might be a way to do that. But again, you wouldn't want to delete them, again, because they're going to be completely wiped off the bracket they're coming off of, and that's definitely not what you want either. So. That might be a good question to kind of even call in to us for when we can talk specifically. That's a pretty specific question to your tournament. So, feel free to call in too. I mean, let us know. Garrett's on tonight yet, so if you wanted to talk to him, he'd be happy to talk to you. Otherwise, if you want to call in tomorrow, any of us could chat with you as well.
Now, are you guys going to redo your 101 again, like soon, or?
I think so. We're getting a lot of requests for that, and I think some of the stuff that we're covering. So yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that. We don't have it scheduled as of right now. It's a matter of trying to fit it into our schedules as well. But we'll definitely make a note. We've heard a lot of that, and the varsity 101 as well. So we'll see what we can do. Okay,
one real quick thing. I wanted to ask, when are you guys going to offer those other classes available to sign up for online? Because I happened to look yesterday to see there was schedules. It had a list of all sorts of good stuff I thought would be neat to go and join. It wasn't on current schedule what you guys have now.
Yep, that's correct. So that is something that we are hoping to get updated this week. And again, it's just a matter of getting and having it work in our schedule. But keep looking. Again, you're right. It is something we need to get going on, and I would guess that we'd have that up this week sometime.
That's no problem. I just wasn't sure because my club was going to help me do some of those. Wanted to only take the courses that would be, good for me to learn to try to build their tournament.
Yep.
So
you bet. So just keep looking. Yep, those courses will all be offered, and we'll get through those, as I guess as soon as we can. So yep, keep checking back.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Shane.
You're very welcome.
Shane?
Yes.
Can you go to a bracket and remind me how to change positions of a couple wrestlers?
Sure. Yep. So if you open any bracket, and it wouldn't matter, we'll go, we'll just take this one, I guess. So however you open it, you get a bracket open. You can do this from your bout schedule too. It's probably even quicker. And I'll just make this full screen so you can see it. So you're saying, what if I wanted to switch this wrestler and this wrestler?
Yes.
Yep. So if I click, it's actually 2 steps, I suppose. I'm going to move Christopher right here to bout 107. So I click on 107, and instead of Harvey, I'm just going to come select that drop down, and I'll pick Christopher. Because the bracket's already built, I'll need to type change there. And you'll notice that now Christopher gets moved there, but he's also still here.
Right.
So then I just click on the other bout, and I believe this was Harvey. I could be wrong, but but I think actually I got it right that time. There you go.
Great.
Yeah, I don't think we have anybody extra. So yeah, so basically you just click on the 2 bouts that you're looking to switch wrestlers for, and then that drop down is how you would do that. It's also how you add a buy. If there was a situation where a kid gets pulled and you just want to put a buy in there, you could also do that using that same method.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? I know we still have a couple of you there. Yeah.
On the testing site, when you filled in recorded bouts all at once.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Could you go through that again?
Yeah, you bet. So let's just look so we remember where we're at. So if I go to my bout schedule, as you know, this is a place to look kind of where you are in the tournament. So let's look at this. So let's look at 0405. So again, I'm going to use the filter over here, and I think this is really important for people to know how to filter there. But 0405, I used 1001 to start. So let's say we want to run the whole first round of everybody. My last bout here is 1039. So if I go to left menu and in operations, and that's operations is always the spot where you're going to do that kind of cool stuff on the testing site. It's always in operations. And then from this, it's the same place you add random wrestlers, but it's in enter bouts.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, and so I think we're 1001 to 1039. Oh, 1039. And when I enter those, it's just going to take whatever bout numbers. I could put, just 1 through 9,999 if I wanted to enter them all. But now when I come back to my bout schedule and I filter 0203, must have been, was it 0405? Sure, it was 0405. Yep. Now you'll see that those are all entered. So, and there's scores. I mean, if you look in here, there's scores, and they, some of them are kind of, lots of big numbers and stuff in there, but at least gives you some fairly realistic data to look at.
Great, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Hey Shane, this is Bernadette Greenwood.
Hi.
And hi, I have a question. So would it work for me to just have one computer set up as kind of like a station as the tournament is being ran to enter in as it's going, opposed to waiting until it's completely done? Because I probably won't be able to have computers at every single match.
Sure. Yeah, and that's really common actually. So if you don't have, if you're not running electronic bouts, probably the most common way and the quickest way is to, have a runner. So when you have, 3 or 4 bout sheets done at a table, swing by, pick those up, take them back to the head table, or, the truth is it could be in another room. It could be in a computer lab or a classroom or wherever the case might be. Take those back, and then that person, or people for that matter, they're just working from the bout entry. They're going to type their bout number in and, pick their winner and go from there. No, I think that's a great idea. There's no real reason to wait until after the event's done, unless you don't have, I guess the manpower or woman power to do it. So, yeah, no, that's a great idea. And a lot of people do it that way as well. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Again, still have a couple of you still on the line, and we're good. We're good. That's just fine with me too. But if you do have questions, let me know.
No, I think
I'm good.
okay.
Okay.
Wanted to
Well,
hear what people
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome, guys. Yeah, no problem. Well, I'm going to sign off and stop the recording, and be sure to let us know through our ticket system or give us a call if you guys have questions.
Thanks.
Thanks.